Chair Myers, confirming we have quorum and are live on YouTube.
Great, thank you. I'd like to call this TTC Human Resources Committee meeting to order. The clerk has confirmed that quorum is present, and I will begin with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Does any member wish to declare a conflict of interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Nope. Seeing none, we will move on. The next item is the approval of the meeting minutes of January 20th, 2025. Can I please have a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you,
So
Vice Chair.
moved.
All favor, by show of hands. Adopted. Okay. So the first item of business is People and Culture, Inclusion and Equity 2024 Annual Report, Navigating the Future. Are there any questions on this item? Vice Chair?
Yes, thank you. First, let me just compliment staff and not just the report, but just the changes that I've seen in the TTC are, frankly phenomenal. And if I could go back in history a little bit, like I remember the days when when my father would come home and say that he was skipped over a promotion. This is as a mechanic in a shop to become a lead hand or a foreman because he wasn't, frankly, he was WASC. He was white. No, he wasn't Anglo-Saxon. He was white, Eastern European Catholic. And in those days, you needed to be white, Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and a Mason to frankly get anywhere in the TTC. And that wasn't him. And that affected his consciousness. It affected the like it just kind of screws with your mind, even as a kid coming when he came home and gave us those reports. And then I go on a TTC bus or a vehicle and I see a black woman with a hijab, and I go, holy smokes, the TTC, like the TTC got the memo. And it feels really, really good when I see janitors that don't look like me and women inspectors, and it feels good. But that's a feeling level. And the report is very good. Like, we celebrate some key milestones, some key things in the city of Toronto, everything from Pride to Black History Month and so on. And I think we have a strong I would call it a feminist perspective in hiring in that. But where the report, it seems to me, and maybe I'm behind the times on this, we don't actually have data on what our employment force looks like. And so I'm wondering, like, is my feeling just because of my own little experience, or is there actually data that backs up what the TTC looks like in terms of different demographic groups? Do we have that? First, do we track that, and is that data available?
Perhaps I can jump in and answer that question. So first of all, thank you so much for your comments, Commissioner Mihevik. There definitely is a change afloat. It's a work in progress. We still have a way to go, but definitely appreciate you noticing the good changes. In terms of data on employees, we are in the process of getting that. We have a current employee engagement survey out. It was extended. It closes tomorrow. And one of the outcomes of that is going to be some demographic data. There were quite a few questions as a part of that survey, tracking race-based data, religious affiliation, gender identity, et cetera. And that's something that we have not collected systematically at the TTC before. So in terms of establishing a benchmark and being able to show not only just employees, but members of the public what we look like demographically, we're on track to doing that. Now, that being said, responses to the engagement survey are voluntary. They are tracking very well. As of Friday, we were just over 60%, which is great. So in terms of having and some indicators that we can say are from concrete data, we will have that shortly.
Great. And if you go back in time, there was a period when employment equity was big, and then at some point it was that tracking those numbers weren't seen as a good thing to do from a human resource perspective. That's not the case, is it? That, like, tracking is okay; it just has to be voluntary, right?
That's correct. That is
right,
absolutely correct. It's just there's certain information that you need it for from an insurance benefits perspective, but if it's collected for that reason, it can only be used for that reason. If we're collecting it for demographic purposes to influence talent management programs or any other HR related programs, You do have to be careful how you collect the information. You have to be clear as to why you're collecting in the information and how it is going to be used and who it will be shared with, etc. But yes, it still remains voluntary.
Great, great. Well, I look forward to the numbers, and again, like amazing work, Shakira. Like it just TTC looks like Toronto, and that's just an amazing thing. So thanks for
We'll
your
pass
good
that on
work.
to the team. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
Back to you.
Osborne, do you have any questions?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I would just add on to what Vice Chair Mihevc just said. I was on the team.
You're breaking up a bit.
Work.
I don't know if you want to turn your camera off and try
I
that.
just stopped my video. I wasn't sure. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, this is better. This is better.
Okay, great. I was on the board when a lot of this work was undertaken, and we had two significant issues. One was we had a problem, and the second one, we had a perception in the public of a problem. And I think the work that has been done, in the early days, it was just like we're trying to make a massive sea change, and I would echo the comments that we've really made some progress. I am equally interested in getting the data to make sure that the numbers back up what the picture looks like. I'm also kind of surprised because I would have thought this would have been a requirement, a disclosure requirement. Like federally regulated companies have certain disclosures on this kind of demographic data just to be sure that people are reporting and are conscious of this. Is there no requirement either from the city or other oversight body that requires us to disclose the number of race-based or disability and so on?
My understanding, and I might ask my legal colleague to chime in, is that no, there is no legal requirement. The requirement is more in how you collect and say you're going to use the data. It's not so much, and my background was in the federal public sector, and that was exactly it. No requirement per se to report. The requirements are how you ask for it and how you're going to use it. Michael, am I missing anything there?
No, I agree. And I think so. The issue is that the TTC has lots of data. It was collected for a specific purpose. As Shakira mentioned, some of it relates to health insurance or insurance requirements that don't allow you to use it for any other purpose. And so you're kind of recollecting some of the information you have with clear consent about the information being voluntary and someone giving it to you to be able to be used for some other purpose.
Okay, my question relates to it looks like in last year, 2024, we spent $400,000 in the department.
You're breaking up again, Commissioner Osborne. I'm going to turn my camera off as well. Maybe that will help with the data.
I'll try again. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Could everyone turn their videos off? Maybe it'll just help with the signal. Okay.
One of the charts in the first attachment indicated that we spent this year, and it's $100,000 on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility department. Is that correct? That is, I'm assuming, because it looks to me like there are 50 full-time employees in that department salaries.
You're still breaking up, but if you guys can hear.
I couldn't hear it completely, but if I can try and summarize, then you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll turn it over to Marlon to help respond. Your question was regarding how much money was spent in building up the diversity department in terms of the staff that are there, because we did make reference to some of the job roles. Is that the information you're looking for, Commissioner Osborne?
The question was, if you could hear, it's 400 is the budget. So I'm assuming that does not count what we're paying in people.
I'm so sorry, that was still unclear for me. I don't know if anyone else heard the question. It's just the line is really choppy.
So Shakira, I think the question is that the $400,000 is effectively an external cost. It does not include the people that the TTC has that actually run the program or do any of the other training related to those programs, if I understood the question. Did I understand the question correct, Commissioner Osborne?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Marlon, can I turn it over? We've got the director for the diversity department online. Marlon, can you respond to that, please?
Good morning, folks. The funds for the diversity department outside of staffing costs are allocated to a number of specific projects that we were mandated to work from the inception of the office. One of those projects is working with the special constables and fair inspectors and Dr. Kwasi and folks at the University of Toronto for the RAIA report number 1, which has already been presented to the board in regards to policies and development and culture change program within the special constables. The second report will be coming to the board in the fall, which is the RAIA report number 2, which also speaks to the work that we've been mandated to do with the special constables and fair inspectors. That is one of the projects that the funds are allocated for. The second components or the financing of other projects within the department include training and education from the CABRE unit, a Confronting Anti-Black Racism unit, which supports the implementation of the council mandated program around confronting anti-Black racism that we've been asked as city divisions to participate and have a plan for. And third, it meets the need in regards to training and inclusive leadership program for the executive and senior leadership programs that is currently underway over the last couple of years. So those funds are to meet those expectations and mandates for those projects.
Thank you. Jamal, I have sent you my question, just if I'm breaking up. We did test it yesterday.
1 second. Okay, so the question was, there's a $400,000 budget. We have 15 full-time employees. I assume this isn't included in the 400,000. Second question, do we have a total budget including people?
Thank you.
If I could get back to you on that, I don't have the exact number, but I will look for it ASAP and get to you. So total budget for the department, including salaries and operating, is that that's what you're asking? Okay, I will get that for you.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Just waiting because I see some dots to see if there's another question coming. Okay, so no more questions from Commissioner Osborne? Nope. Okay. You're welcome. So I had a few questions, and it's similarly around the data and the lack of milestones in the report. So if I'm going to go to example for page 25, and this is the assessment of the employee built environment for accessibility and inclusion. And then it sort of has the top 5 findings. So number 1, no emergency alarm system provided in parking lots, lunchrooms, washrooms, and other staff areas. This issue was noted in 53 facilities, in garages, stations, car houses, shops, and offices. So I guess what I would like to see, or just wondering, so what's the timeline to rectify that in the 53 facilities? 1, and who's responsible for that?
Thank you for that question. The Built Environment Report is a report that we received recently over the last few months. We've taken all the recommendations and summarized them. There's 2 action items that are coming out of that. One, we are currently in the budgetary process with our internal departments for a feasibility study to address all the highlighted recommendations that need to be addressed. Some of those recommendations are items that we as a internal department, not diversity department, other folks can do. Other items are more complex in regards to addressing or repairing, and those items need a feasibility study with a budget to be presented during the budgetary process for us to address that. So we are doing that now. That's in process. The second piece is there is a working group that will be developed with HRRD, Human Rights and Diversity, who's leading to ensure that the recommendations and issues outlined in that built environment that addresses accessibility in its broader sense, that we have an action plan and we are moving those items through the system in a timely fashion. Many of the items that are outlined have been items that have been brought to our attention not only by our local unions, but through our new staff that are coming on onboarding, and the employee groups have raised some of these issues for us to be addressed. So we are getting to a point where we will be able to see some actions in the near future on some of those issues. But first, we need to go through the budget process and get the feasibility studies for the complex items. And second action item is the working group put together to ensure that all of those recommendations are done within a timely manner to meet the needs of not only the safety needs of this report, but the accessibility needs that we are mandated through the AODA legislation.
Okay, so for me, that information is important for to be included in the report, because right now it's just reading as we're doing all these great things, but there's no timelines with most of these things, or sort of governance in terms of who's doing what, who's accountable for ensuring. So obviously we don't have to go into that level of like granular detail, but I think it would just be helpful maybe if there was even an appendix or something, just sort of saying, you know, what the value of what we're doing is, and we've done that, but then saying what's the goal, and then who's responsible for the goal, and how we plan on getting there.
And thank you for that comment and question. One of the things I just want to highlight is this report is a 2024 report. So there are a number of items that are already in process at this moment. And this report only speaks to the issues, items, and mandate for 2024. The 2025 report will have a far much more detailed and robust information because those action items are going to be reported on. So that's where you may see the need for more information. This is only capturing what has happened and taken place in 2024. With the mandate of reducing the report, it used to be 100 and I can't remember the pages, 125-page report. We've dwindled it down and focused only on the anti-racism strategy. So there are a number of items that you will be able to see in the 2025 report that speaks to the issues that you've just raised.
Okay, but even there are other things such as, like, I'm just going to page 24. So the new Hire Women Operator Mentorship Program. In its third year, the new Hire Women Operator Mentorship Program continues to provide support and guidance to women identifying operators starting their careers at the TTC. So as a board member, I'd like to know, well, one is how many women have actually done the programming, and what percentage of the new Hire women have actually done the programming? And two, do the women who complete the programming, do they actually find the programming helpful? Like, is it something that we should be continuing to do, or is it just not providing as much value as we'd like? I guess that's where I'm coming from, in that we're talking about these things, but then we're not including sort of the goal or the data to sort of justify or back up what we're doing and showing how that's improving the organization as a whole. If that makes sense.
It makes total sense, and we have with talent management reported on this program at our People and Culture Leadership table. We could certainly get that information to you, and to your request, add that piece of information into the current report.
Great. And I'm just sort of going through it. or for example, I'm looking at the Human Rights and Investigation Department that is talked about in action item 1. I mean, there was a lot of progress made in the Human Rights and Investigation Department in terms of getting the number of like unresolved complaints down significantly. I think they were cut by 500. And I think that's a really good news story and something that should be front and center in this section, but it's not even mentioned.
We can get more information from HRID to include to pad it up a little bit more, if that's your request. I can request that be added just for 2024. Yeah,
I think it's just like it would be helpful if I knew, like, as the chair, as a board director, like, okay, we have these goals, but as I think everyone's been saying, what's the data, what's the milestones that we're trying to achieve? Like, where are we going with this?
So
other than we're doing it because it's the right thing to do, but where is show us the benefit to TTC in terms of, like, we're doing this programming, this is how people are benefiting, and this is why we're going to continue doing this programming.
Yeah, so I definitely understand making sure we focus on the long-term goals that we're trying to achieve. For the investigations in HRID, one thing that I anticipate might be a bit challenging, but I'm sure we can figure something out, is that that's a pretty broad umbrella in terms of, areas under respect and dignity or human rights cases. So it's broad stats that cover anything and everything at TTC. And I don't know if there's something particular you're looking for under the diversity umbrella in that area.
Sort of how this diversity plan sort of is going towards the corporate plan goals or whatever larger goals that are set for the organization. How does this get us there?
Okay, we can look at something and bring it back to you to make sure it's okay.
Okay.
Can I just answer a previous question for a second? So Commissioner Osborne had asked the diversity department's budget. I just have information on that. It's 3 million in total, 1.8 million in labor and 1.2 million non-labor. So 1.8 in salaries, 1.2 in operating. And Marlon, I think you probably want to jump in there.
I just wanted to jump in and also give, I think it's important that the history and the background of the diversity department, because it helps to answer some of the questions that are very important to the needs and the role of our commissioners. One of the key pieces, this is a 4-year-old department that came together to address recommendations that came out of the Arlene Huggins report to implement the 10-point action plan and diversity plan. And it came out at a time where the TTC, to Mr. Mihevic's point, of a crisis. And in that crisis, there was a commitment to develop this department. In doing so, it's taken this department a number of years to get fully staffed. It's taking time to fit ourselves into a system that did not have the capacity and competencies of a department like this, and 2, to find a shared vision across 84 departments in TTC to help to push and be accountable for the 10-point action plan, the 5-year diversity plan, and the recommendations that have come out of a number of offices, whether that's the AG, the coroner's office, etc. Last few years, this report that you have in front of you today is an evolution and is a 3rd report. I would highly recommend that we look back at the other reports that has a much more robust set of information that covers the entire organization. What you have in front of you today is a report that really speaks to a board-approved anti-racism strategy, and in our thoughts, wanted to ensure that you had information that spoke to an approved strategy of the board that you would want to see information and data on the progression of. For the future, to Councillor Meyer, to the chair, to your question around how are we demonstrating impact and how are we demonstrating our mission fulfilled? There are a number of programs and activities that we are currently mandated to do. And with that, we can certainly reflect on and redesign a report that meets the needs of the board, that encompasses all of the work of the diversity department and not just a particular strategy. And those are things that are doable for us as a department. But I really want to stress the need for a reflection on the why we came in, why we were created as a department, the learnings that we have had and implemented as we've learned, and the challenges of a department that is new in a 100-year-old organization to develop the structures, the partnerships, and the collaborations that are needed to actually implement our mandate. And I want to share that context with you because I think it's important to understand the journey of the department in its last 4 years and the impact that we've had not only on employee engagement, but stakeholder relationship with some of our community leaders and advocacy groups, and also the investment of working with the University of Toronto and the RAIA report, et cetera. Quite a bit, a chunk of work is unseen at this moment through this report. So I do appreciate the comment from the chair. And those are things that we could certainly make adjustment and changes to as needed.
And I guess when will that supplementary work be done? And I'm also conscious of the era we live in when, diversity departments initiatives are being canceled, left, right, and center, or being scrapped for a variety of reasons, some of them political. But one of the constant charges made, I guess, is that it can be very hard to show the value of the diversity and inclusion department unless there's data to actually show the progress being made so that there's an argument to sustain these types of initiatives. And I guess that's really what I'm getting at, in that we give a lot of qualitative information, but there's very little in terms of how does this fit within the larger corporate plan? How does this get us to, what are the goals that we're trying to achieve? Are we on track for these milestones? Who's in charge of this information? I think that is a type of information where I'd like to see the next iteration of this report go, because right now it's a lot of things that are sounding great, but could I point to one or two things that I could say, oh, this is great, and here's the data to show that this is great? No.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I really appreciate that comment, because that is the best practice, to be able to put KPIs and data to the work within a diversity inclusion framework. And that's a challenge for all organizations. And there are pieces of data that we have been very good at collecting. So for example, with the Inclusive Leadership Program, which will be reported out in 2025, we'll have data on the impact on the learnings and competencies developed by our leadership teams over the course of our work with the upskill program. So there will be data coming to that. There are some areas that are more challenging for us to demonstrate impact through data. And the context of that challenge rests in our early times within TTC and the ability to draw from particular data areas that we currently have. For example, working with human rights and human rights team around the kinds of complaints, demographics of those complaints, the meaning of their data, and then providing opportunities to go into and work with our interdepartment folks to address some of the issues that come up from a human rights perspective around training, development, and accountabilities. And so we do have some mechanisms around data collection, but there are some areas and some KPIs that we are now trying to figure out how best to collect that data within all the legislative frameworks that we have around confidentiality, et cetera, but also to be able to produce that data in ways that make sense, that the board members are able to, the committee members are able to make informed decisions on the work that we do. There are some areas where we are challenged in that, and we will get better at that. But in 2025 report, you will be able to see the kinds of data that you're speaking to highlight the impact of the investment in the work of this department.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe one last point if I can, Chair.
Sure.
For 2024, we can if there are areas where you are and folks are requesting data, we can certainly bring forward that information within the next month, if possible. If there are key areas you're looking for, and we have the data for it, we can let you know where that data is and provide that summary of that data, and that is totally possible. And an example of that is our work around confronting anti-Black racism that we are mandated to do. We certainly have data on a number of employees to date that have gone through that program, the impact of that program on their performances, et cetera. So we're able to provide some of those data, and I can certainly share that with you by end of month if there are particular areas that are of interest to this committee.
Okay, so why don't we talk offline about that then?
Sure thing. Thank you.
Okay, great. Are there any other questions on the item? Nope.
No.
Speakers? Vice Chair, you put your hand up? Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, thank you very much. Well, first, I want to congratulate and just thank staff. It's clear you folks are on the ball, and it's just wonderful to see. And I want my comments to be held in within that context. One is I'm not a politician anymore, but we do have to recognize the political moment we are in, where we have, frankly, fairly aggressive signals coming from, especially south of the border, that basically are saying that enough already, and we've done this. We don't want to do this anymore. It's gone over the top. That's the context, and this report and the work that you folks are doing is basically a counter message. And so I do think if I were to edit the report, I would say you need a section at the beginning, and it really is a centering thing around why we do this. Why is it important for a company that is about buses and trains and steel and moving people around? Why is it interested in equity and inclusion kind of work? I think we need to always recenter our work in the why of it. I think it will help us in the long run. Within that context, I would say as well that another section that I would put in is like, what are the challenges? Like, what keeps Shakira up at night? Where does she think or where does the department think that all of this needs to be going? That would be helpful to us as a board. We don't want the report just to be a kind of cheerleading thing. We want it to be kind of real, and the real is also being able to look in the mirror and say, okay, these are where we see the spots that need some fixing and need where the future challenges are. So that would be another section. Well, and then the other thing that I think we need to do is. We're pretty good at it. And maybe I'm just emphasizing that we need to continue to be good at it, or maybe even better at it, is we need to tell this story better. In an era where, some of the major corporations south of the border and even north of the border, you see it with the unsponsoring of Pride that happened this last weekend by big corporations, sometimes getting signals from the US, sometimes just acting on their own and moving in a different direction. We have a story to tell, and we need to be bold and be proud in telling that story. I'll tell you, one of the things that I think it would just be a great story would be the way the TTC has, I think, half a dozen or a dozen prayer rooms for Muslim workers in various shops around town. I think that's a great story. I tried to do that, Chair Myers, Councillor Myers, at the 6 civic centers, and somehow we just weren't able to pull it off. but the TTC did it. Here, the TTC, the engineers, the kind of linear thinker types had the chutzpah to basically pull that together and have a number of facilities that have a prayer room. So like I think we have I think there's a lot of good stuff here, and we have a great story to tell, and we don't tell our story well enough. It is my view that we don't tell our story well enough, and this is a real opportunity. This area of work, because it is so good and so genuine, I think needs to be told more strongly. Those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Osborne is still having internet issues, so I will just say that her comment is following the question raised by the committee and the discussion that followed would be a request for next year's report to have more charts and numbers and less reliance on narrative. So yes, I'd also like to just add my comments to this. So I guess a bit of context is important. So in my previous life as a corporate lawyer on Bay Street, I was actually doing ESG reporting for TD Bank. And we were always told that when you think of ESG or diversity reports or anything like that, you should think of it more like GES, i.e. governance before any environmental targets or sustainability targets, because that's really what's important to understand, like what you're measuring it, how you're measuring it, who's doing what, and sort of having the data to tell the story that you're trying to tell. So I would, add my comments, add on to the comments made by the Vice Chair. There's a lot of good things that are happening in the report, but I would also echo what Councillor Osborne or Commissioner Osborne is saying, is that I would love to see a report with less narrative and more targets, goals, who's in charge of what, where is this going, and how does this fit within the larger corporate plan?
And we could certainly do that. That would be best practice and what our intentions are. So there isn't any. I don't see too much of a challenge in producing that type of report for this committee. If I may just speak to a couple important points that Mr. Rehavik made around the importance of this work, because it speaks to the importance of the report. The work that and the story being told, and I think we as the TTC can do a much better job at telling our story, because it's a very important story to the role that the TTC plays in building economic, social, and vibrant city of Toronto. In that, we do have our own challenges as an organization in addressing the city's model of diversity, our strength. And so there's some work for us to do as an organization around how do we tell that story and how do we demonstrate our impact on bringing that model to life. And we could do that through the report. One of the key pieces I would like to impress upon this committee is in regards to this work. When we think about work around equity, it is important that we understand that equity work it's not a fly-by-night. It doesn't come and go. This is the work of the city of Toronto, the most diverse city in the world. And with that comes challenges in making it the best city with such diversity. And our role within the TTC is to support the workers, the employees that move this city in ways that are going to be helpful to our bottom line, be it on time, safety, and reliability. So equity for us is not in comparison to the South, today it's here, tomorrow it's gone. We could change the name, but we still have to look at how we as an organization address the issues of inequities, but also the issue of equity.
Thank you, Marlon. Okay, going on to, so seeing no further speakers, can I have a motion to receive the report for information? Thank you, Vice Chair. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. The remaining two items in today's agenda are confidential matters. Can I please have the clerk post the resolution to recess into confidential session? The motion reads that the Human Resources Committee recess into confidential session to consider information about labor relations or employee negotiations, collective bargaining and labor update, item 2, and information about an identifiable individual, including city or local board employees. Item 3, Chief Executive Officer performance and objectives.
Members, we're back in public session.
Thank you. So we just considered item 2, collective bargaining and labor update. In camera, seeing no further speakers, can I have a motion to adopt the report recommendation? Thank you, Commissioner Osborne. All those in favor? Carried. The next item was that we just considered in camera was the CEO performance and objectives. Seeing no further speakers, can I please have a motion to adopt the report recommendations? Commissioner Osborne, thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. That concludes the business of this meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Osborne, thank you. All those in favor? Item carries and we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.